We're back with another episode. How's everyone doing?
Yo, what is up, guys? My name is Alex Fernandez-Klm. I'm so honored to be here on the seat across from us, and it is great to be here.
You're from Washington.
Yes, I am from Seattle, Washington. I went to Bellevue Christian High School, and I currently go to Brandeis University. And yeah, I'm excited to be here as a second year.
Why are we here, Alex?
Honestly, we are here today to talk about some of my favorite stories of some of the Abrahamic religions, in particular. My boy Moses, I think he's pretty cool.
What you know about Moses?
Dude, honestly, take me back to Exodus, bro. Back in the day, dude. Moses was a child of Israel when they were being enslaved by the Egyptians.
Yeah.
And one day, the Pharaoh essentially wanted to murder all of these sons of the Jews, the slaves. And one day, as he was floating down the river, he washed ashore into the pond of the queen of Egypt. And so the queen of Egypt found this little baby in the basket and decided hey, we're gonna nurture this little kid wherever he came from. Turned out to be Moses, you know? He's growing up with royalty and stuff. He has no idea who he actually is because he was found as he was birthed as one of the Jews. His remaining family that he was born from, the Jews, still remember Moses being sent down the river. So they know that he's royalty, but he doesn't know anything about himself. And so one day he travels into the Jewish enslavement camp and essentially runs into his family claiming that he was Jewish and stuff. And because he was from Egyptian royalty, he was like, I'm not like one of you guys. Eventually he finds out, I believe, from his parents, or it might be proven when he goes back to the Jewish enslavement camp, but he eventually finds out that he is in fact Jewish. He has a sudden change of heart for the Egyptians, saying that, hey, these are people too. As a result, I believe he was exiled. He learned a couple of things as he was exiled, and he's approached by the burning bush. He finds the burning bush because he turned into a shepherd as he was doing all of these travels while he was exiled. It was God speaking to him that he needs to go back to Egypt and save all of the Jews, because something about his covenant being fulfilled, God's covenant. So Moses inevitably goes back and demands from Pharaoh to let his people go. Pharaoh, of course, is so God unleashes his wrath upon Egypt, which are 10 plagues. After the 10th plague, which killed Pharaoh's son, it killed all the firstborn children of Egypt, but God told the people of Israel to put sheep's blood or lamb's blood over their doors so that God would know that these are Israelis and not Egyptians, so set them free. After this last plague, Pharaoh let them go, and so Moses takes all of the freed Israelites to the ocean. Pharaoh changed his mind suddenly and wanted his slaves back, so he chased after him with his army. Moses, with an incredible miracle, parted the Red Sea. He crossed the ocean with his Israelites, and as Pharaoh was following him, closed the ocean on his army and freed the people. They were promised to find the land of milk and honey, and inevitably, because they weren't as faithful to God as God thought they would be, they were wandering around in the desert for 40 years as a people group. Yeah, I believe that is all of Exodus, but it's honestly crazy that this story exists from so long ago, because there's a lot of accounts of it happening in general from historical contests like Arabic. We have ancient texts of Exodus in Arabic and also ancient Greek, which is pretty crazy.
You know, the story of Moses, I do know it the exact same way, but well through.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a pretty common story that a lot of people are familiar with, but I don't think a lot of people see how this story can apply to life in general. It just seems like if you just have a little faith and put in a little effort and rally together and unite, you can accomplish great things and great feats of strength. As the story goes in Moses, they weren't exactly as faithful to God after they got freed from the Egyptians. I believe it goes like Moses goes to a mountain and converses with God for like some amount of time. And while Moses is conversing with God, the people of Israel are waiting at like the bottom of the mountain and stuff. They're starting to lose faith in God because like nothing is working and they're just like out there in the desert. So they start worshiping like pagan idols and things that would not please God. When Moses came down, he came down with the 10 Commandments. He like set things straight among them. Yeah.
I just keep thinking of like, you know that books are written on like, stories.
Right.
Let's take the 10 Commandments, for example. How do you know that the 10 Commandments are the 10 Commandments? Is there proof that the 10 Commandments exist? Because you said it yourself at the beginning of the episode, there was different versions of scripture. How do you know these scriptures are the actual scriptures? You have to believe first that these scriptures are given by this exact same person.
Right.
To me, it's when people are like, yeah, you kind of have to like believe. All right, so you have to kind of do something first in order to do it. And then this also reminds you of like, you know, you're trying to escape from slavery because that's what was happening in Egypt, right? Put the 10 Commandments. Isn't that acting like God has to be the most powerful person with the 10 Commandments, and if you don't follow it, what happens? Isn't that the same thing as what was happening in Egypt? If you didn't follow the Pharaoh's rules, what happens? Something bad happens to you. What's the difference? I'm like, it makes it so hard to want to believe in something. In order for me to be like, whatever, right, I have to believe it first. If I believe I'm in a good mood, probably I'll be in a good mood, depending on how it is. But it goes back to like, how do you know that these things exist?
I think that God would have to have some other kind of motive in mind that transcends our understanding, you know? And it's something that we can only perceive as far as like the human mind goes, you know? So what you're saying by like believing in something and then not believing in it causes you to go down a wrong path could be part of God's way of some other motive in mind, you know?
The more I am stepping away from whatever religion is, the more it gets me questioning. What if I don't want to do it? Or, because to me, humans are going to go through life the way life is supposed to do. Is someone controlling that? We physically don't know. We don't know what happens in the afterlife. We don't even know if there's an afterlife. Because why? All the people that die, you die. You don't exist in this world anymore. Life continues the way. How do we know the Big Bang even happened? Or how? Because it all goes back to the same thing at the very beginning. How do you know these things are happening when we don't have proof?
So, what do you make of like your existence?
I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know. All I know is my mom and my dad had sex, and all of a sudden I. No, I'm being sincere. It's true. That's all I know. Did I ask to be in this life? No, I didn't. Because my parents said that like my dad couldn't like pull out in time, and that's why it exists. It's a great story to tell.
Real.
But it's the same thing. I don't know because you know life just exists, and whether we're Christians or whether we're whatever we want to be, you're going to struggle with life. I'm going through life, and I went through the last 5 years without believing in anything, and it's given me a lot of freedom. Now, am I wrong by that? I don't know because I can't be the one to judge people because there's no. Why are you judging me? I asked this to someone else because one of my friends is also a Christian, and when we first met, I don't think we did like each other, but it's because he was like a diehard Christian, and I wasn't, so I'd always like think what he would say. And in understanding that, he would come back and answer with the questions I had. And one of the questions I had asked him is like, there are so many different religions other than Christianity that we know, and we all exist in this world. Some religions think that God doesn't exist. Some religions think that Jesus only exists, or that some other thing exists. How do you? We live in this world. I don't know, but we just do. That's the reason why I'm just like so hard to believe in something, because I was forced to go to church, and that's the reason why I decided to give it a break. Given if I would have had great experiences, maybe things would have been a little different. People are so judgmental inside the Christian world that they destroy the ego of the families. I think in the years that I was in church, I went to 5 different churches, probably more, I'm not sure, I wasn't counting. And in all 5 of those churches, I think when you got to an understanding of who the pastor was, you start to see people's like real colors real fast.
Definitely.
And so once you start to see people's real colors, that's when there's a thing. My family has gotten hurt time and time again by the pastors themselves. Why? Because we put a lot of trust in these people, and they go and use what we say against our thing. I don't remember anything specifically, but I remember like us going to church one day, and the pastor was talking about one of our problems. Well, first of all, that's my issue or my family's issue. You have no right to, and that's what I'm saying. People with position of power sometimes get a little crazy, and I'm just like, it all relates back to the same thing of like, what is Christianity or what is religion, right? That's what the episode is about. What even is religion? I can have a definition of religion. You can have a definition of religion. Jose, who's next room, also has his opinion. Guy can have his opinion. Ruben can have his opinion. At the end of the day, you are going to believe what you need to believe, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
It really is okay.
I think a lot of people like to use religion as like a coping mechanism as well. Sometimes it can put you in like a good force of habit, you know, like if you have a happy mind, you can have a happy life. For example, my grandmother's sister's husband, he was a Buddhist, and he would pray 1,000 times a day. He would like get on his knees and then stand up, and then get on his knees and then stand up 1,000 times every single day. Because of it, like he had like really strong legs. He was walking around until like the day that he passed away, and RIP, but it put him into a good force of habit that kept him strong for a really long time. I think for most people, that same thing applies in a mental perspective as well. Because like it reinforces some general like advanced beliefs. You know what I mean? The Bible teaches a lot of like good lessons to just apply to life in like general. Whether you believe the story or not is up to you, but it's still like morally a good read in general.
It is a really good read. I mean, you telling the story, it like goes, it brings me back of when I was reading the Bible. And I could see where we were kind of in the book timeline of where we were. And the stories in the Bible, they're amazing. They're fantastic. The story of Jonah being eaten by a big fish.
Yeah, that's like cool. You know?
Exactly. They're cool stories. Like, it's just like crazy.
It all revolves around like a central faith of like believing in God, obviously, because like, you know, in the Jonah story, he like, you know, believes in God and starts to trust him, and then the fish spits him out, you know, and then or like in Moses, like Moses starts to believe in God, and then all the people are freed, and then like, you know, it's more about the act of choosing to step up and being more courageous. Moses like was exiled from Egypt. Now, he wasn't supposed to come back, but he still did, you know, just as like a building of like character, some development going on. It teaches something that you can apply to like yourself in life if you need to like, you know, take a step forward. You quote unquote be more courageous, like Moses or some shit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, again, that's what a story does, right? A story is meant to whether you read it or not, it's gonna help you in some way. It's just like those self-help books
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, I need to do this or create a positive mindset. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing, but like
Definitely.
you have to go through the book in order to see what you feel, right? And a lot of people are going to feel a lot of different ways. The one good thing about religion in general is it creates this sense of community. Now, you know, when people say, oh, I'm a Christian, people who are Christians are like, oh, welcome, my brother and sister in
Mm-hmm.
Christ. It gives you that sense of family, community. So it gives you something to do because, you know, if you go to a church, there's so many things to do.
Yeah, bro.
It's just like a hobby as well.
On
And it's
Sundays, bro, it
yeah.
used to go from like 9 a.m. to like 2 p.m. You know, it would take up like my whole day.
I think your church was early because my church was late.
Really?
It was at
Damn.
like 6
p.m.
Yeah.
Damn. So like, would you eat dinner there?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? Alright.
And you should see the places where we had church. They were a little sketchy.
Dude, yeah, bro. I went to my friend's dad's church, actually. My friend's dad is a pastor. And he just had a little ministry opened up, and it was like in the second floor of a building, and everything that was surrounding it was like car shops, like where
Whoa.
people would work on cars. Yeah, so sometimes it was cool. Sometimes there'd be like, you know, some nice Nissans from the 90s and stuff, and like Mitsubishis, some Porsches occasionally. It was nice. But I would show up every Thursday night. I would listen to him preach. Almost every week, he was saying like pretty much the same things, you know? After like 3 months of going, I realized that there's a lot of people who believe in false idols in general. And it turns out this guy opened up his ministry for his business so that he could donate all of his money to the ministry so that he could get tax-free money.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Yes, yes.
I've so many of those stories.
Mm-hmm. And it actually was so sad to me because there were people that were in this ministry that were believing what he was saying, you know, but he was only saying these like random things just for tax-free dollars.
I was talking to a pastor, and one of the pastors had told me that like they use any money, I guess, that they get on themselves and the church just in general, like the place of property.
Mm-hmm.
There's also something else. It's like 10% of your paycheck.
Oh, tithe. Yeah, I can see from a non-religious perspective how tithing can be like a no-no. Because I feel like if I wasn't religious, I would see tithing as something they want you to subscribe or something so that you can listen to like more of it every week or something like that, you know? I personally believe that if you tithe in general, just like good things will happen to you, bro. If there is this God in general, and if he is a good God, then if I donate to him, which is something that he asks for, he will in turn be happy and reward me because he's so good. People who are kind-hearted in general oftentimes are found religious. I went to a lot of church events growing up in general. It got to the point where I was going to like church in the mornings on Sunday. I would have like youth group on Tuesday, another church service on Friday, and then just like every week. So like pretty much 3 times a week. A lot of the time, it was a really nice community to be in because everybody is just so kind to you. It's all just like a learning experience, and everybody is just like joining in and doing like worship and praise, and everyone is praying over each other, and it's just a very sensational moment.
When you were going to those events, how many of those kids were going?
That is a good question. I want to say maybe like 10 to 20% of the kids.
But if you're being forced to go, then it's just like,
Yeah.
because I will say I was forced to go enough to accept the consequences of what happens if I don't go, what happens if I do go. But I'm like, a church that I went to specifically, all the kids, and I'm talking 100% of these kids were coming because they're. So that's why I asked the question, but that's really good. 20% is like
Yeah.
people are choosing to do it, which is
It also had a lot to do with their like upbringing as a kid as well. I grew up going to church. A lot of those kids there also grew up going to church. The kids that were actually being forced to go didn't seem like it was because they didn't believe in God. It was just like they're just not as social, you know, so they didn't really want to be there. But they still like believe in God, you know. So I would say like a lot of people like in general, most churches have a hard time having like people show up to events. So the people that do show up want to be there. You know, for the church that I used to go to in Seattle, so it had a really good international program as well. So there were a lot of like international students who didn't really care. You know, it was like fine in general. But the community that I grew up in while I was in church was actually a community that I really liked. I grew up in a Korean church, and pretty much they're just a bunch of old Korean men and women like to worship God and a lot of grandkids. You know what I mean? So all the grandkids would be um, in Sunday school, coloring on Moses cartoons and all that kind of stuff. We do like a little bit of like concert worship because like some of the older kids would volunteer to perform a concert of like Jesus songs and stuff. It was kind of cool sometimes. I would actually watch Hello Kitty there. They would put Hello Kitty on the TV, and then we'd like eat crazy good Korean food prepared by like a bunch of old Korean ladies.
yeah. That's what
After
I was gonna
church.
say about church. Either like whenever there was like cookouts happening,
Oh my
which
goodness.
is probably always on Sunday.
It's every Sunday, bro.
And it's always before, and then we're full, and then we're all worshiping.
Mhm.
Best way to go. 2 hours of service, and then having to eat after that.
Yeah, bro.
But it's because like a bunch of Latinos like come together, right? Because that's who I went to church with.
Mhm.
West Coast.
Mhm.
So there was always a bunch of food,
Mhm.
and I'm just like,
Bro, mad food, bro. Yeah, it was so good. Yeah, I grew up on that, bro. It was nice. That was my Korean church in Seattle, but I lived in DC for half my life as well on my come up. So the other church it was also very nice. It was like kind of formal, but they had a really good Sunday school program too. So like there were like a bunch of like teachers that taught like, almost each grade about Sunday school, analyzing the Bible. Low key, they would like assign homework, but like nobody would do that shit, bro. Like
yo, who is doing the homework for Sunday school?
I know. It's kind. I mean, it's kind of sad because like it's understandable that you want people to believe in something, but when you're putting in work just for them not to do anything. That part is kind of sad, but also, bro, it's not like actual school. You know,
Yeah.
you could learn about it by just talking about
Yo,
it.
I already hate regular school.
Yeah.
Do more work.
Yeah, exactly. Once you put it on paper, it's like, come on.
We have reached the end of this episode, and as you can see, there are a lot of different perspectives on religion. So, if you do have an opinion on religion, let us know. Yeah, can everyone say goodbye to Alex? Just kidding, don't say shit.
Bye, guys. Catch you guys later.